Have you ever wondered what lies hidden in the shadow of absolute power? When the tourist crowds leave Rome and silence settles over the marble halls of the Vatican. For centuries, the Church proclaimed a clear dogma: man must not gaze at the stars. Astrology and planetary magic were considered sin, heresy. Yet behind the closed doors of the papal apartments, reality was different. This is one of the most fascinating and best documented contradictions in church history. While the Vatican and the Inquisition forbade astrology and planetary magic for the common people and unauthorized scholars as heretical, demonic, or a sin against free will, they were practiced intensively behind the closed doors of the papal apartments for centuries. Many popes of the Renaissance and Baroque periods were practically obsessed with astrology and used magical protective rituals to secure their power and ward off illness. It is one of the greatest double standards in history. Many of the most powerful figures relied not only on the Bible, but also on the ephemeris book, the astrological tables of their time. Pope Julius II, the man who commissioned Michelangelo, postponed his own coronation not for political reasons, but because his court astrologers calculated that the stars were unfavorably aligned on that day. Under Pope Paul III, there was a dedicated department for astrological assessments in the Vatican. No trip, no important decisions were made before the day's horoscope had been checked. For the common people, the universe was a place of blind obedience. For the elite in the Vatican, it was a mathematical, magical machine. The most spectacular secret is revealed in 1628. Pope Urban VIII is in deep distress. His enemies have predicted his death precisely at the time of the upcoming solar eclipse. In his panic, the Pope turns to a man whom the Church had actually imprisoned, the monk and magician Tommaso Campanella. What happened next sounds like a legend, but it is immortalized in the documents of that time. Campanella and the Pope lock themselves in a hermetically sealed room. They hang white cloth to block out the dying light of the sun. They light exactly 7 candles, one for each of the ancient planets. They burn incense from Jupiter and Venus to create an artificial protective universe within the room. They practice pure planetary magic in the very heart of the Vatican. Urban VIII survives the eclipse and the ritual remains a state secret. Why this immense effort? Why the secrecy? It was about power. Whoever could read the stars possessed the most exclusive knowledge in the world. Had an enemy king or the people had free access to astrology, they could have calculated the Pope's weaknesses, illnesses, his moments of weakness. By prohibiting magic for the people, the Vatican disarmed its opponents on a metaphysical level. The books of the magicians were confiscated, but they were not burned. They were placed in the secret archives as the most powerful tool, accessible only to a select few. If you travel to Rome today and look up into the magnificent halls of the popes, you will not see mere decoration. You will see a statement. re-rule in harmony with the cosmos. Pope Julius II, the famous warrior pope who commissioned Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel, postponed his own coronation because his astrologer had calculated that the planetary alignment on the originally planned date was unlucky. He also had the exact day for the start of his military campaigns determined astrologically. And Pope Paul III established a dedicated department for astrology in the Vatican. No consistory meeting, the Assembly of Cardinals, was convened, and no journey was undertaken until astrologers like Lucas Gaudicus had examined the day's horoscope. Paradoxically, it was this very pope who reformed the Inquisition and tightened the Index of Forbidden Books. This double standard is hard to surpass. And Pope Leo X was such a great patron of astrology that he established a dedicated chair of astrology in the papal universities in Rome. How did the Church justify this extreme contradiction? It drew a fine theological line between two types of astrology. First, there was Astrologia Ludiciaria, the forbidden astrology, the creation of horoscope predictions that claimed the stars absolutely determined human free will or the fate of the Church. This was strictly forbidden by the Vatican, among other things, through bulls issued by Sixtus V and Urban VIII themselves, because it contradicted Christian doctrine that only God knows destiny. Then there was Astrologia Naturalis, the permitted natural astrology, the knowledge of the physical influence of the planets on the body, such as the tides, the weather, or bodily fluids. Since the Pope was a physical being, it was argued it was pure natural science to protect oneself from the physical rays of a solar eclipse or unfavorable planetary constellations through magically sympathetic means. But it doesn't stop there. The Vatican didn't just use planetary magic for bedroom rituals. It incorporated esoteric knowledge directly into sacred buildings. The Meridian of Santa Maria degli Angeli, and in this and other Roman churches, features enormous sundials, meridians, embedded in the floor. Officially, they serve to precisely calculate the date of Easter. Unofficially, they allowed the papal astronomers to determine down to the second when the sun entered a new zodiac sign. This knowledge was the absolute prerequisite for electional astrology, that is, adjusting the perfect magical moment for political treaties or laying foundation stones. We also found geometric planetary patterns in the floor mosaics of many Renaissance chapels. Complex geometric patterns, often in the cosmotesque style, can be found which upon closer analysis correspond to the mathematical ratios of the cameos, the magical planetary squares. In this way, the harmonizing and protective structure of the planetary orbit was brought directly into the sacred space, into the altar or the papal throne, to secure it energetically. The astrological sealing magic of the popes. A pope demonstrated his power not only through words, but also through the pictorial programs of his palaces. Whoever had astrological dominion over the cosmos painted on the wall also claimed this power on earth. The Sala de' Pontefici, designed under Pope Leo X, features a ceiling by artists such as Giovanni da Udine and Perino del Vaga. The centerpiece is not Jesus or the apostles, but a monumental depiction of the starry sky with the constellations and their corresponding planetary deities. It is absolutely fascinating to gaze upon the ceiling of one of the Pope's most important reception rooms, and the entire visual program is a monumental astrological map of the cosmos, without a single traditional Christian cross or image of a saint in focus. A true monument to the hidden scholarly magic of the Renaissance. Directly to the right of the center, we see the triumphal chariot, the chariot of Diana or Venus, drawn by white horses. In the center, the mighty eagle, the symbolic mount of Jupiter, is entwined. The message to visiting dignitaries was unmistakable. The Pope reigns in accordance with the cosmic order. And now we have a look at the secret archives and the filtering of competing knowledge. Why did the Vatican keep this knowledge to itself while simultaneously persecuting it externally? It was a question of the monopoly of power. Almost all important works on practical magic and astrology ended up on the Index Liborum Prohibitorum, the list of forbidden books. In the 16th and 17th centuries, however, the books weren't all burned. No, a large portion of the confiscated writings went directly into the Vatican Apostolic Library and the secret archive. The Vatican's logic behind this was that if a hostile king or rebellious prince had access to precise astrology, he could calculate the perfect time to attack the papal state or use the Pope's horoscope to discover his weaknesses, such as illnesses or years of death. But by declaring astrology illegal, the Vatican disarmed its opponents, while the papal astrologers secretly worked on countermeasures. In the end, a system emerged that functioned perfectly on two levels. For the mass of believers, the dogma of absolute divine providence, combined with a strict prohibition against trying to fathom the future through stars or magic, held sway. For the papal elite, however, the universe was a gigantic mathematical magical machine. They saw themselves as the rightful engineers of this machine, possessing the right and the duty to pull the levers on planetary forces to steer the Church through the storms of the ages. But the stars continue their orbits, unmoved by human dogma. They shine for the beggar as well as for the Pope. What do you think? Do these practices still exist in the Vatican today?